Hey, welcome everyone. In this video, I'm going to be doing a review of the PlayStation Now game streaming service. This service basically lets you stream hundreds of PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 games on a PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 5 console, and even on a Windows computer. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Let's go back and start with the pricing. It's surprisingly cheap. Here in Canada, 1 month subscription is $12.99, 3 months is $34.99, and 12 months is $79.99, so $80 a year. As of this video recording, there are over 800 games total, and currently over 300 of them are PlayStation 4 games. The interesting thing about the PlayStation 4 games is that you can play them offline, but I'll get back into that detail later on. Games currently stream at a maximum of 1080p and the quality is pretty decent. I've been using this service for over a year, and during that time I completely beat God of War 1 and 2 from PlayStation 2, Infamous 1 and 2 from PlayStation 3, and Spider-Man from PlayStation 4. Spider-Man from the PlayStation 4 was only available for a limited time, but it's possible it might return later on, because what Sony does is that the most recent exclusive titles, Sony kind of shuffles them around month over month or every 2-3 months, it depends. I found latency pretty good. There was usually a fraction of a second delay between issuing button commands and on my screen character reacting. Nothing to ruin the experience, but just slightly noticeable. Let's put it this way. The fact that I fully completed 5 games should be evidence that the service works pretty good. The requirements to use PlayStation Now is pretty simple. You'll need a Sony PlayStation account, which is free and takes a couple minutes to sign up. You'll need a PlayStation Now subscription service, which you have to pay for like I mentioned earlier. And you'll also need the Sony DualShock 4 controller or the DualSense controller from PlayStation 5, one or the other is fine, and an internet connection. Now keep in mind that in order to use this service on a Windows computer, you do not need a console. It's not like you have to have a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 and then it bounces this signal to your Windows computer. Nope, you can just kind of boot up your laptop and start playing it immediately. Sony recommends a minimum download speed of 5 megabits per second for the service to work. But in my testing, the picture gets blurry even for a PlayStation 3 game, which doesn't have the best graphics for today's standards. For example, here you'll see the minimap is really blurred out. In fact, sometimes I couldn't even get the game to load up. The connection would just completely fail. At 15 megabits per second, it's much better, and games like Infamous Second Son from PlayStation 4 are playable, but the image is a bit too soft and slightly pixelated, details aren't that crisp. Playing it locally on a console, Infamous Second Son is one of the best looking PlayStation 4 games, but again, I'll talk about offline playback later on. My recommendation to stream games is to play with a minimum 25 megabits connection for the best experience. So if you're like me and you have cable internet, I hope you know that the more people in your neighborhood that use cable internet, the slower your internet gets. Not sure what I'm talking about? Well, I have another video explaining how that works, and that's the downside of cable internet. A link to that video is in the video description. So just something to keep in mind. It doesn't mean it's a problem with PlayStation Now streaming service, it's just an issue of having cable internet that you might experience if you try to use the service during peak hours, let's say at 8 or 9 p.m. on a weekday night. The PlayStation Now service itself is pretty stable. It wasn't so great a few years ago, but recently it's gotten incredibly stable, it's a lot better. I'm not sure, I could be guessing here, but because Sony signed a deal with Microsoft Azure, I think that has to do with a lot of the service being a lot more stable and improved. They might be using Azure services to host this platform, which is shocking to me because, you know, over here you have Microsoft, Azure, Xbox, and then over here you have Sony. They signed a deal together? Quite shocking to me. But hey, it works out better for the consumer, right? If your connection is getting really slow, you'll get a small yellow warning icon in the corner of the screen. This warning lets you know to save your game progress in case you lose connectivity, and there's a good reason for that. Because of the most annoying thing about this service is that when you lose a connection. And here's where it got really annoying in my personal experience. Over the winter holidays, I have cable internet, like I said, and I think everyone else around me was using cable internet, so I was losing a lot of connectivity, it wasn't the most stable. And I lost connection, so I quickly switched over to phone tethering, and I was probably reconnected in about 15 seconds, except in the game I was playing, you can't just save, you have to reach a checkpoint. I didn't reach the checkpoint, so I lost like 20 minutes of gameplay and I had to redo it all over again. What's more annoying on top of that is that what's happening in the background when you spin up a game is that Sony is spinning up a virtual PlayStation console and then it has to load the game. So for Infamous 2, when I lost that progress, I had to load up a virtual PlayStation 3 environment on the PlayStation Now service, then it loads this Infamous 2 game, so you've wasted minutes there. What Sony should allow is that if you disconnect from the service, you're given maybe 60 seconds, like a minute, to reconnect before they clean you off the slate. Instead, the second you disconnect, boom, you're gone, which is incredibly annoying. For those of you wondering, yes, you can play multiplayer on PlayStation Now service with other PlayStation Now gamers or other gamers even if they own the original copy of the game. You don't need a PlayStation Plus account to play multiplayer, and you don't need a PlayStation Plus account to save games in the cloud. All of that is covered in the PlayStation Now subscription. To use this service, you don't need a powerful computer since the cloud service is doing all the work for you. All games played on a Windows computer have to be done over the internet. It's pure streaming. You cannot play any games offline. On Windows PC, the PlayStation Now app is annoying to navigate as everything is in categories or alphabetical sections. For some reason, there's no ability to search for a game in the PC app. Another annoying thing while using this service on PC is that the controller needs to have a wired connection. You cannot use a wireless connection with the controller. I find this incredibly odd as the Sony PlayStation Now compatible controller website mentions connecting a PlayStation controller using a wireless connection. I've had this service for over a year and it still doesn't work. Come on Sony, it's 2021, let me use my controller through a wireless connection. If you're using the service on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5, the experience is much better. For starters, the interface is a lot better and you can actually search for a game. On top of that, you can use the controller in wireless mode. Perhaps the best part of the console experience that's not available on Windows is the ability to download PlayStation 4 games to the console and play them even without an internet connection. This means no fear of latency or the game cutting out due to internet issues. Not only that, but the categories on the PlayStation console are just generally better. They dig into a lot more deeper details into certain genres, whereas the Windows app doesn't do that for some reason, which is incredibly odd. The other advantage to downloading PlayStation 4 games to the console means that any games made for 4K can be played in 4K if you're using a PlayStation 4 Pro or PlayStation 5. Although the one weird thing is that the PlayStation Now app on consoles do carry a bug. For some reason, sometimes search will not work at all. For example, if I search for the game For Honor, it doesn't show up. But if I manually look for it, it's right there. It's kind of bizarre. Look, I think the service is incredible overall. I think Sony has done something amazing here with over 800 games. Most of them you won't play, but there are a lot of game hits, a lot of classics here. I myself never got to play the original God of War 1, 2, and I got to do that through the PlayStation Now gaming streaming service. And I did that over my Windows computer. So it's a service definitely worth checking out, especially with all those Sony exclusive classics, even the more recent games from PlayStation 4. And that's pretty much a wrap from me. So if you found this video useful, be sure to check out my social links in the video description, hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.